back to Trump and tariffs. There seem to me two schools of thought, I'm hoping you both don't just go to your respective corners on this one because it is a very sensitive issue for people. There's some people saying that the world knows Donald Trump is erratic and governs through chaos, and that this is just the latest episode of that. And there's nothing new to be learned. It was priced into the stock of if Trump's the president of the United States, there's going to be, chaos. And then there's a school which you can read about in the Wall Street Journal editorial page. My namesake, Mark Halperin, not me, but the novelist and political writer, and on the pages of the New York Times editorial page, Tom Friedman, both basically saying what a lot of European leaders are privately saying and some business leaders are saying, which is this is different. This was playing Russian roulette with the world economy, and now Trump can't be trusted. I tend to be in school one, but I'm surprised at the vociferousness of those in school two. Put up the Ackman tweet. Bill Ackman, who called for a 90-day pause and was very critical of what the president was doing after being a supporter of the president during the campaign, is back on the reservation with this tweet. This was brilliantly executed, textbook art of the deal. So, Sean, start with you. Do you think the world and the business community and Europe in particular are thinking differently now about Donald Trump, or they're just like, this is the guy we knew from term one, it's all the same?
I think it's more of that. Look, if you believe the reports, the bond market had a lot to do with his thinking on this. I will say, and Hassett touched on it in that thing, but there were these school. I mean, I've seen it up close. It's not like there's one group that goes in the Oval, and you could tell yesterday that this narrative that we discussed yesterday, Bessett going down, talking about the impact, how to play this, carried the day. Now, who was on what team ultimately, whether Kevin was on his team but the bottom line is, I think that there was a sense of here's where this goes back to my Mulvaney story. Here's where the real money is. If you really want to do something on trade, if you really want to focus.
I'm just asking you to address my question though, which is, do you think European leaders and business leaders around the world and in this country are thinking about him differently now and as less trustworthy or not?
I don't know that it's trustworthy. I think everybody has said this. They knew that tariffs were coming. They knew that he was going to do this. He's talked about it forever. I've said this for ad nauseum. He's been talking about it for 40 years. I don't think anyone was surprised by it, but I think I think how it evolved is kind of where people are trying to figure that secret sauce out, right? Like he went in and everybody thought the second that the market tanked, he would be out. That clearly wasn't the case. I didn't think the bond market was going to be it. And so I don't know that it's trust. I think it's like, what is the thinking? Who's in charge? Because when it comes to trust or however we're phrasing this is consistent with Donald Trump's thinking. He's talked about tariffs forever. I don't know that anybody in Europe or a business leader was shocked by it. He was open. I think how it played out, I think more of it is just confusing than this, because as we've talked about, it was like the strategy was we want reciprocity. Okay, I think most people are on board on that. And then they started talking about the deficit and onshoring. That's where I think he lost a lot of people. And if you're a leader, right? When I mentioned I talked to Netanyahu, I talked to a couple other people who were like, the easy answer was great, we'll take our tariff down. And if you're told no, I don't know. Again, this is where I'm not sure that we're using the right word. Not that I can find the
Okay.
one, but it was
Well,
like,
you can say, if you don't like untrustworthy, you can say unreliable.
I just think I was like I said, I'm more apt to stay confusing. I was like, I get reciprocity. If I'm a
Yeah.
leader or whether it's in industry or, a foreign head of state, I'm like, I get you want me to go to zero. But then when I went to zero, you said 10 or 17 in the case of Israel. I
Right.
don't understand. And that's what I think that's
Here's
the issue.
here's where I do my Karnak. Dan is going to disagree. Dan.
I don't know the answer, which is why I asked the community member yesterday, did this move fundamentally alter her view of Trump? Because I have wondered this the last few days. Is this his Hurricane Katrina, where there is a fundamental, this was so chaotic and reckless, like you touched my bottom line, you touched my livelihood, my family, safety and economic security. And it's one thing on DEI or immigration where it's somebody else, you know, for a lot of people, or even, yeah, sorry.
And just to be clear, as Donald Trump would say, many people are saying exactly what you just said. Some on social media, some privately, that this is they consider this to be of a different order of magnitude than the other things Trump has done in Trump 1 and Trump 2 that they found unpredictable.
Right. But I don't know.
I'm not saying they're right, but
yeah, and that's the thing. I honestly mean this. I don't know. And as I've tried to game this out for Democrats, because that's the hat I wear, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if 2 weeks from now, it's like, all right, he didn't do this. It's why I just can't see him ever going back to it. Like, he can't in 90 days be like, it's July 4th weekend, by the way, we're going into back to school. And like, okay, here we go. Tariffs are all back on. We haven't made enough progress. Like, so I don't know the answer, Mark, but I think it's a great question.
okay.
And I'll be and by the way, our friend, our friend, Mark Caputo, at the end of his Axios story, slipped in the absolute last sentence. The White House had 5 polls that they had received in the last week that showed that the tariffs were a huge loser.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing that, you know, what's funny, during the end of the Trump administration, if you recall, one of the issues that he had with General Milley was calling China to reassure them. And I know this sounds, just sometimes the perspective is interesting that, like, I wonder if you're China or Russia and you look at this militarily, Trump's unpredictability is always what scared the hell out of him. That, you know, and again, I know this is like, maybe I'm just trying to look for the silver lining, but I think part of his unpredictability is what keeps, whether it's Putin or Xi or even North Korea, on the edge of their seat going, you know, what's this guy going to do? And because it's not traditional. So while this was an economic play, I do think that there's national security implications that actually probably benefit us.